Hello and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analysis and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. One theme ran across all global newspapers today, which might see the end of Donald Trump's tariff wars as a federal trade court blocked the president from imposing sweeping tariffs on imports under an emergency powers law, deeming it illegal. American newspapers also focused on Elon Musk's exit announcement from U.S. government role after breaking with Trump on tax bill, while Trump's statements about warning Israeli Prime Minister against striking Iran received quite a bit of attention. Internationally, all media outlets continue to cover the developments in Gaza as starving Palestinians burst into an aid warehouse yesterday, resulting in civilian casualties from crushing and gunshot wounds. Let's start with the Wall Street Journal, which published a report reviewing also Lebanon's recent efforts to disarm Hezbollah in its southern strongholds, highlighting significant progress made with the help of Israeli intelligence. It notes that the Lebanese army now controls much of the south, marking a shift in authority away from Hezbollah. While the group has cooperated so far, it resists full disarmament, citing security concerns. This article also points out that extending these efforts beyond the south is politically risky, given Hezbollah's deep roots and support. The government's strategy aims to avoid civil conflict while expanding state authority. The review concludes that although Lebanon has taken important steps towards stability, the future remains uncertain as leaders balance peace, reconstruction, and the challenge of fully disarming powerful militias. While most newspapers reported on the utter chaos that engulfed the distribution of aid in Gaza by the GHF and the trampling that took place after starving Palestinians stormed an aid warehouse, causing the death of 4 Palestinian civilians, Gil Paris wrote in Le Monde today, examining how Israel's response to the Gaza war, including rising civilian casualties and media restrictions, reflects a troubling shift in Israeli society's values and attitudes. The article highlights strong criticism of Israel's policies that have spread recently beyond pro-Palestinian circles after 20 months of this war and a civilian death toll reaching to 54,000. The piece criticizes Israel's ban on international media and the deaths of Palestinian journalists, arguing this has hidden the true scale of the destruction. It also highlights growing Israeli public indifference to Palestinian suffering and fierce backlash against critics. The article draws parallels to past tragedies, warning that silence and normalization of violence mark a troubling transformation in Israeli society as compassion for Gaza's victims fades. The New York Times continued to focus on what many are starting to call the Harvard saga. The newspaper dedicated a section or an entire section to cover the new developments, like the latest statements by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said that the U.S. will aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students. Other headlines also read, Trump suggests limit on international students at Harvard, and also Harvard says many of its foreign students are seeking to transfer. The paper also published an analysis by Maggie Haberman on the matter, saying that Harvard's fight illustrates Trump's worldview as he has been fixated on making an example of those who push back against him. The analysis reviews how President Trump indeed blames Harvard for losing federal funding by refusing to comply with his administration's demands. Trump frames the conflict as Harvard's fault, saying that the university is disrespecting the country. The piece highlights how Trump uses Harvard as an example to warn others that dissent will not be tolerated. And the administration's approach extends to other critics as well, including law firms, former officials, and artists, blaming them for any punitive actions taken against them. The author contends that while some agree universities should address cultural issues, the administration's attacks on Harvard have gone further than most expected. Local American news was the focus of the Washington Post's front page today. In one of its top stories, the paper tracked key cases covering President Trump's actions on law firms, immigration, worker firings, DOGE cuts, transgender care, and more, concluding that Trump lost on tariffs but won on DOGE, as most of his tariffs were halted by a U.S. trade court. However, the Post also published a report on how much international students contribute to the U.S. economy following what some call the administration's war on academic institutions and foreign students. The report reviews economic and social impact of the Trump administration's pause on new student visas, warning that the loss of international students could not only hurt universities, but also local and state economies. Now, last year, over 1.1 million international students contributed nearly $44 billion to the U.S. economy and supported more than 378,000 jobs. The report also included this map of the United States. It shows the distribution of the foreign students across the different states in the U.S. And as you can see in the big circles that represent 100,000 students, where they are in New York, in Massachusetts, in Texas, and in California, and some also in Illinois. These students pay higher tuition, rent apartments, and spend money on local businesses, fueling job creation and real estate markets. Economists say universities can't easily replace this revenue with domestic students, and long-term effects may include fewer entrepreneurs and less innovation. The university around U.S. visa policy is already discouraging, or that's what the universities say, that the new American policy is already discouraging talented students from applying, risking America's reputation as a top destination for global talent. Moving on to Axios, which published a report on Elon Musk's X post yesterday announcing his exit from DOGE and his role as a special government employee under President Donald Trump. Here is what he wrote on X. Let's have a look. So if you can see, he says, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. He says that DOGE, or the DOGE mission, will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. Now, according to reports, Musk was originally intended to lead DOGE into next summer, and officials believed there were workabouts to keep him on board, indeed, for longer. However, this announcement marks his shift from political activism back to his core business ventures, SpaceX and Tesla. The Axios report details how Musk's time in Washington damaged his company's reputations and sales, particularly amid protests and public backlash. In a series of interviews, Musk expressed regret over his heavy involvement in politics, criticizing recent government spending and reflecting on the challenges of his DOGE team's mission to cut federal debt. The article notes Musk's effort to rehabilitate his public image by emphasizing his engineering vision, especially his renewed focus on Mars exploration. The Pentagon's decision to end Musk's controversial internal reporting mandate marks also a clear move away from his government influence. And since we're talking about Elon Musk, let's go back to the Wall Street Journal, where an exclusive report revealed how Elon Musk tried to block Sam Altman Sam Altman's big AI deal in the Middle East. The report reviews how OpenAI, leading a group of major US tech firms, secured a deal to build one of the world's largest AI data centers in Abu Dhabi, despite efforts by Elon Musk to block the agreement unless his own company, xAI, was included. Musk also warned UAE officials that President Trump would not approve the project without xAI's involvement. Of course, reflecting his rivalry with OpenAI's Sam Altman. After Musk's intervention, the White House indeed reviewed the deal, but ultimately allowed it to proceed without xAI. The project, called Stargate UAE, is part of a broader US-UAE partnership to expand AI infrastructure, with the UAE investing heavily in American technology and agreeing to strict US oversight. The episode highlights fierce competition among US AI leaders and geopolitical stakes in global AI development. And we'll end with The Guardian, where Paulina Bock wrote an article exploring how the viral video of Brigitte Macron pushing President Emmanuel Macron reignited public debates in France about privacy, gender dynamics, and the boundaries of public image for political leaders. The author also says that the incident sparked discussion about how physical gestures in relationships are perceived differently depending on gender, with some questioning whether a similar act by a man would be dismissed as playful. She cites experts who note that such viral moments reveal societal expectations about masculinity and also femininity and the power balance in couples. Also, at the same time, the article highlights how the video became fuel for online rumors and disinformation campaigns, especially from Russian and far-right sources, aimed at undermining Macron's image and leadership. This reflects a broader pattern of targeted digital misinformation against French political figures. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.